At this point, I think the World of Warcraft writers need a raise. Because I don't know, maybe they are so incompetent because they are not financially stimulated. We need to look at every angle at this point, right? Because the foundation and the potential of this expansion, from a story point of view, is so good and so big, and somehow they fucked it up in such stupid and easily avoidable ways. And also, there are a few exceptions, parts of the story that were actually good and that just make me feel even worse, because if you were able to do it there and actually do it quite well, what kind of head trauma did you have to suffer in between to have the rest be so bad? And I will say this right now before we start the video. When I say the story of the Midnight campaign is mostly dogshit, I'm not just saying that because I personally didn't like it. Sure, there is of course some subjectivity involved, but I genuinely struggle to understand how anyone could praise it. Most of the problems that bother me aren't just I did not vibe with it issues. They're structural. The story constantly fails basic logic. Things don't make sense. Events contradict what we already know about the world. Characters behave in ways that are completely inconsistent with who they are. It's just total nonsense. And that ends up creating a vibe problem as well. The entire get the war out of Warcraft feeling is definitely there. But honestly, I don't even think that was a fully intentional direction. It doesn't feel like they deliberately removed conflict and violence from parts of the world because they wanted a softer setting. It feels more like a side effect. A side effect of writers who simply don't understand the existing history of the world, the tension within it, or the logic that made it work in the first place. I think they just didn't realize those conflicts were there to begin with. If Chris Metzen had any involvement in this story, then something seriously weird must have happened. He was either drugged, held hostage, or went through some kind of life-altering trauma. Because this isn't just bad writing, it's not just stupid writing, it's not just way below the standard that he set in the past. It feels like it was written by someone who fundamentally does not understand the World of Warcraft, its characters, or why any of this mattered in the first place. So, let's begin. It all starts with you being summoned to the Sunwell to fight the armies of the Void. And here we are met with the first big problem. And that is how immersion breaking the in-game experience actually is. At all times, you have Arator, a very powerful and important character, be your pet. I make a step to the right, he makes a step to the right. I make a step to the left, he makes a step to the left. If I shoot myself in the head, he will probably think it's kind of weird for a second, but I am the champion of Azeroth after all, so there must be some trick that I know and he doesn't, and he will do it too. He heals you all the time, so there is actually no danger of dying at all. Beyond that, you also have the usual problem where everyone keeps calling you champion and treating you like the chosen savior of the universe. And on top of that, some NPCs behave like they have actual dementia.
Has the attack started? What do you want?
Has the attack started?
But the bigger issue is that most of the characters just sit there and do absolutely nothing. There's a quest where you're sent to retrieve a bunch of legendary weapons. The idea is that you need to secure them before the Void steals them and then later use them to survive the incoming attack. Pretty important stuff, right? Naturally, you are the one sent to do it. You know, the champion, the errand boy, the slave. Meanwhile, Arator, Turelian, Lady Liadrin, Alansus Fowl, Lotraxion, and like 40 members of the Light Vanguard are all just standing there, watching. At some point, we need to realize that they're just using us. In my head, I already see Turelian and Liadrin being like, "Yo, Liadrin, watch this! Champion, please come, quickly! We are in dire need of your assistance."
Just look at him, he's about to do all the work.
Ah yes, champion, you alone can retrieve these weapons, and you alone can defeat the Void forces. Please, go and do it. Okay, but wait, aren't we all in danger? Maybe you guys could help me? Oh fuck. Champion, we'll discuss this later, okay? For now, we must remain here and worm the ground. Please, hurry. And this isn't a one-off thing, it happens throughout the entire campaign. To be fair, Blizzard has kind of tried to patch this problem a bit. Sometimes an NPC will say something like, "You take that side, I will handle the other," but they never actually do anything, they just say it. That's the best case scenario, by the way. Most of the time they're just standing there being completely useless. Now, if this happened once, it wouldn't matter at all. It's a video game, I get that, I'm not insane. But when it keeps happening over and over again, it absolutely destroys immersion, and even worse, it makes these once legendary characters look incredibly stupid and lame. When I see the statue of Turalyon in the Valley of Heroes back in Classic, I'm thinking, god damn, this guy must be an absolute badass. Then you actually meet him here, and half the time he's just standing around doing nothing, and during the most of the remaining time, he's acting cringe and having what looks like a full-blown midlife crisis. So from a pure gameplay perspective, the entire Midnight campaign is constantly breaking immersion because of how the game treats you and how it treats the major lore characters around you. But what about the story itself? Well, aside from one big exception that we'll talk about later, the story is pretty bad. Most of the time it either doesn't make sense or it's painfully boring, predictable and basic. I'll try not to spoil too much, but let me give you one example. Early in the campaign, you arrive in Tranquillion. Some suspicious stuff is going on in town, so you're sent to investigate. And like other several investigation type quests throughout the campaign, the villains turn out to be complete idiots who apparently leave evidence everywhere. I'm talking journals, notes, posters for fuck's sake. You basically trip over clues. And again, it's not just stupid, it's immersion breaking, because moments like these completely pull you out of the world. Instead of feeling like you're uncovering a conspiracy, it feels like you're just following obvious quest markers in a video game. No cult secretly infiltrating a small town, not even the dumbest one imaginable, would ever leave written evidence scattered all over the place. And then of course, the biggest shock of the century, the mayor of the town, the guy who talks like an evil villain and tried to avoid meeting you at the start, turns out to be the bad guy. What a twist! Wow! When I say this writing is predictable, I mean it's painfully predictable. You know exactly how the entire story beat is going to end at the moment it begins. The writers never surprise you, never do anything interesting, never take the story somewhere unexpected. And this isn't just a one-off example either. Just like the other problems I mentioned already, this kind of writing shows up throughout the entire campaign. Anyway, after the early campaign, you eventually reach the classic command table moment where the story splits and you can choose the order in which you complete the remaining chapters. There are 3 main sections, and once you finish all 3, a 4th and final chapter unlocks. One story focuses on Arator, another centers on Lady Liadrin and the situation with the Ammani, and the third follows the new allied race, the Haraneer, dealing with the Light Bloom. And I'll just say this, all 3 are dogshit. I'll start with the least bad one, which is funny because it's the one I expected to be the worst, the Haraneer storyline. Going into it, I was actually excited for the other 2, and I assumed this one would just be the filler one, the boring one, and it is. It is filler, it is boring, it does suck, but not in an offensive way. It's just painfully boring and predictable. You descend into the underground territory where this new race lives because the wildlife on the surface has been strangely affected by the light. The Haraneer don't accept outsiders, so naturally you are forced to go through some series of trials. You pass them, they accept you, and then you help them with various tasks. Eventually you discover that some resource they possess could be used against the Light Bloom, which is obviously a huge deal. But their leaders refuse to help you. So a small group of Haraneer who like you and realize that the threat is real, decide to live with you and help the surface world anyway. And that's basically the entire arc. If that sounds like nothing, that's because nothing really happens. It's predictable from the very beginning, you can see every bit of the story coming a mile away. This is the kind of plot structure you'd expect from someone writing their first fantasy story when they're 12 years old. Technically it functions, there's nothing completely broken about it, it's just bland, flavorless with zero surprises. At no point does anything happen that makes you think, oh, I didn't see that coming. It's basic, it's boring, it's nothing. But let's get to the other 2 because those are more interesting. Let's talk about the Liadrin storyline. Her arc starts with the discovery that the Ammani trolls seem to be invading Eversong Woods again. As Lortemar points out, that would make perfect sense because the Ammani and the Blood Elves hate each other with an almost legendary intensity. These two groups have been slaughtering each other for generations. The Void Storm hits the region, chaos erupts, and the trolls decide it's a good opportunity to strike. Totally believable, it would make sense, but that's not what is happening. For some reason, Liadrin, one of the worst possible characters to lead a let's cooperate with the trolls storyline, is suddenly extremely diplomatic and chill about the whole situation, which makes absolutely no sense considering her history. During the Second War, she was literally tortured by Zul'jin himself. Her hatred of the trolls has been very clearly established throughout Warcraft lore at many points. And when you meet her, she's just basically, Zul'jin isn't listening to me. Zul'jin is a bad boy. Maybe he'll listen to you. First of all, why the fuck would he listen to me? Can I not be the center of attention for once? But sure, let's roll with it. So now you have dozens of blood elves and trolls standing around together, just talking, having a nice time. Nobody wants to kill each other. Nobody. Nobody is threatening anyone. Nobody is openly hostile. These factions that have spent centuries massacring each other are suddenly here for a polite discussion, maybe even some tea. And remember, the trolls have plenty of reasons to hate the elves too. The elves didn't just defeat them in battle. They wiped out entire trolls' armies with arcane magic and then built Silvermoon directly on top of stolen land. None of that matters here. This is the world of friendship. Lortemar gets maybe 2 lines where he's like, I don't really like trolls, but who knows? And then Liadrin, one of the most justified troll haters in the entire setting, shows up and suddenly, again, it's world of friendship again. The writers clearly don't even understand the timeline of Warcraft, because in the quest the trolls casually mix references to events that happened decades ago with events that happened thousands of years ago. Now, to be clear, a storyline where the Blood Elves and the Ammani are forced to cooperate could absolutely work. In fact, it could be incredible if it was written well. That kind of tension, centuries of hatred, barely held together by necessity, could create amazing character dynamics. But that requires writers who actually understand Warcraft, and good writers. And for good writers, it would be a difficult and risky story to pull off. For Blizzard, which they don't have good writers at all, it's impossible, so they failed. Everyone is calm and diplomatic from the start. 3,000 years of violent, brutal war crimes all over the place get thrown straight into the garbage. And because the opening of this storyline is so bad, the rest of the Ammani arc needs to work extremely hard to redeem itself. And it doesn't. The writing stays just as lame, predictable and stupid. The game tries to pretend the trolls are suspicious of you. Zul'jin and Zul'jara constantly say things like, "We are watching you, we will kill you if you do anything wrong, one move and you're dead." But then they immediately send you on a mission that involves rescuing their defenseless elder leaders, the literal backbone of their society. That's what they say. It's like a police officer telling a crackhead, one wrong move and I shoot you, then unlocking his handcuffs and asking him to go grab the loaded shotgun from the car. They just sit there while you, a foreign enemy who hasn't proven anything yet, run around saving the most important members of their civilization that are also defenseless. Of course, you save the day while Zul'jin, Zul'jara and Liadrin mostly stay around and watch. Eventually we learn that the Loa abandoned the trolls because of what Zul'jin did in the past. So now Zul'jara has to complete a series of trials to regain their favor. Except you do most of the work, of course. Seriously, I did more to complete Zul'jara's trials than she did. I'm always there, always solving the problems, always finishing the tasks. When dealing with a kill zone, most of the objectives are completed by me, not by her. And at the end of it, there's a leap of faith where Zul'jara has to jump. For some reason, you also jump. You don't need to jump. A kill zone doesn't ask that of you. A kill zone doesn't acknowledge that you jumped. Nobody does. Why the fuck do we jump? Liadrin doesn't jump. She's there but he just watches. Why? Remember, this is supposed to be Zul'jara's trial. She's supposed to earn the blessing of the Loa. She's the Ammani troll. So why am I involved in her trial? Why am I jumping? Because apparently there cannot be a single moment in this game that doesn't revolve around me. It's absurd. We already solve every problem in the world. The least they could do is let her fucking jump. Let her have one completely symbolic moment. But no, we for some reason jump as well. Why? And as a side note, after earning a Killzone's blessing, you can stick around and hear Liadrin comforting Zul'Jara and saying that she understands Zul'Jin now, that he has his reasons, and she was also mad with anger at some point, and she was led by that anger, but she's sorry now, so probably Zul'Jin will be sorry too, and it's okay, it's all chill now. Again, insane. 3,000 years of hatred, the fact that Zul'Jin tortured her personally, the brutal atrocities committed by both sides, all of that just gets casually brushed aside. This same pattern repeats with most of the Loa, with the exception of one, until Zul'Jara finally reunites the trolls with all of them. Then we confront the big villain of the zone, Mor'Dun, a servant of Xal'atath. Of course, we do most of the fighting while everyone else watches, and this is it. I want to point out something though. During the entire campaign, we see that Zul'Jan hates the Loa for abandoning the trolls, and has been recklessly leading attacks against the Twilight's blade. Every time he did it, he got a bunch of trolls killed. The exact same thing happens in the final battle. He rushes in early and the trolls suffer massive losses before we arrive. But of course we show up and save the day. The really stupid moment comes right after the fight. Zul'Jan starts talking about how an ocean of blood had to be paid for this victory. Brother, you caused most of that. Why are you talking like it's not your fault? Everybody knows it, just nobody calls him out on it. Then the final quest has you go talk to him while he sits by the ocean reflecting on everything and being sad. He tells you that he and Zul'Jara, by the way Zul'Jara is his sister, that's the relationship between them, are different. She wants to preserve the Ammani in Zul'Aman while he wants to rebuild the old Ammani empire and reconquer Eversong. Maybe this is meant to be the setup for a future conflict between them, but the way it's written, it's so stupid. First of all, he insists that he is the calm one, diplomatic, the one who talks his way through problems, even though his entire storyline has been about him recklessly charging into battle and getting people killed. And then this supposed diplomatic mastermind casually tells me, a blood elf and a member of the Horde, that he plans to reconquer Eversong. I actually had to stop and look at the recording again because I was like, wait, did he seriously just say that? So the Ammani storyline somehow manages to remove the war from Warcraft, ignore established lore, constantly break immersion, and still end up being incredibly stupid at the same time. But we still have the Arator questline, and I have to admit, this is so bad, it was kind of fun at times. From the start of the expansion, Turelian talks to Arator like he's 15. He disciplines Arator all the time. He tells Arator what to do and gets upset and disappointed when he does not listen. He even talks to us, the player character, at some points from the perspective of us being the responsible adult, and that maybe we can push Arator in the right direction. Arator has the voice of a teenager, talks like a teenager, and behaves like a teenager. He mentions a lot of the time that him and his father don't have the best relationship and he would like to change that. Arator is 40 years old. 40! Again, do the writers know who Arator is? Anyway, when we first meet Zul'Jan, Turelian is present, and he really does not trust him at all, and he decides to kill Zul'Jan. Maybe a bit reckless, maybe a bit stupid, but considering the history of the situation, it makes much more sense and is much more natural than literally how anyone else reacts. Anyway, Arator saves him by jumping in front of Turelian's blade. Somehow, he does not die, and Turelian, a war veteran, does not spot his son running towards the target that he wants to hit. Arator also did not think to protect Zul'Jan with a spell or something. Towards the end of the story, he protects his mother from the explosion of a dying Naru combined with a bunch of big void bombs. But Turelian's sword? Nah, come on. What could he ever do about that? Of course he gets hit. After that, Arator gets sad and runs away crying. Quite literally, like a 12-year-old. So his questline involves a Lance's Fowl and some other people being like, "Champion, we need to help Arator. Look at him. He is so sad. After his father beat him, we need to cheer him up." Everyone is talking about Arator like he is this special needs kid that has suffered all his life. So we all get together to make him happy, buy him some McDonald's or something. The other side of the story is actually pretty cool. We must gather a bunch of light-infused weapons and artifacts from the past to empower the people, keeping the Sunwell in check, because they are getting tired basically. And that part of the story is indeed cool, but all over the place you have Alansus and Danath Trollbane and other people trying to cheer up this 40-year-old kid. And the way Arator speaks after the Turalian incident is so cringe. He's just bored and indisposed, like a teenager. Like, oh, you again. Can you please let me chill? He also does not make sense in other ways too. His story revolves around the revelation that the light is not all good. There is a spectrum. There are evil wielders of the light, just how there are good wielders of the void. We all knew this since vanilla, because of the Scarlet Crusade. And this is a well-known fact in general in the Warcraft universe. The Scarlet Crusade is not some small faction in the World of Warcraft that people don't know about. They have at times even sent emissaries in cities like Stormwind, where Arator went many times. And they are a big deal. And they are also not the only evil wielders of the light. For Arator though, this is all a big revelation. Maybe he just started playing World of Warcraft, I guess. This prolific, powerful, 40-year-old user of the light finally finds out what half of Azeroth knows about the nature of the light. And he's kinda angry about it. He's angry, he's very angry. I swear to God, Arator needs access to YouTube and he needs to watch some noble videos because goddamn you are the center of some huge events and you have no idea what's going on in the World of Warcraft. He unironically says, they're killing people. I've never seen the light act like this. Like, bro, were you born yesterday? It's even weirder because he later talks about how he knows how evil the Scarlet Crusade are. So, I don't know what he knows and what he doesn't. Probably he's a paid actor or something and he's not being paid very well. I don't know. And it all ends up with Arator hearing about his father and how he was impacted by the death of Anduin Lothar. And he finally understands how the light can be empowered for the wrong reasons, seeing the anger of his father. By the way, Turalian was younger than Arator during the Second War, so it's kind of fun to see Arator being so fucking clueless compared to anyone else. It's all so bad, like, so bad. A few problems, a few inconsistencies are bound to exist, but they are literally everywhere. Nothing makes sense, nothing is cohesive, nothing respects Warcraft, so overall the story is just bad. It's bad, man, like really, really bad. In the War Within the story was also bad, but it was kind of detached from previous story beats, so it was bad, but in its own vacuum, in its own bubble. Midnight is bad because it's bland and tasteless and boring for the most part, just like the War Within, but it's also bad in the context of the existing Warcraft lore. But as I said, there is a fourth final chapter, and I will not talk much about this because this is actually good. Like for real, it is good. So I don't want to spoil the only good part left. But you get to the Voidstorm and you, Arator, Alyria and Lothraxion have to deal with the Void. The pacing is much better for the story but also for the gameplay. The conflicts make sense and actually feel important. The new characters are cool. The existing characters are better than they ever were. The vibe is much more Warcraft here too. Even from a gameplay point of view, there are still moments where all these big powerful lore characters sit and watch, but they are not as often, and also there is this cool quest where they are actually involved. Not just being your pets and following you around all the time, but you can use their abilities and it's actually super cool. And I think that is a good example of how you could use big characters in quests and not have them feel like they're either incompetent or just using you. It is really, really, really cool. From start to finish. It's sad that this is also the smallest chapter out of all of them. But how? How do you make this and then you have all the other stupid stuff? Did other people work on this part? I don't know, man. But as I said earlier, it makes me sad. But just as BoJack Horseman said when his mother died and she finally acknowledged him, it sucks that they waited all the way to the end to actually show us that there is stuff to love about this. That they could pull it off. That they can. But they just don't. I honestly wished it was shitty all the way to the end. I would have felt better, because this last cool part really made me feel so sad, man. It's actually good. They used to write incredible stories. They don't anymore, and I don't know why. It's also satisfying to finally see someone, in this case Lothraxion, Tell Arator to shut the fuck up for once. He is crying all the time because people are getting hurt. And Lotraxian is like, are you fucking stupid? This is war and you cannot stop crying about it being violent. Shut the fuck up. I loved that moment. And for the side quests, I did like 4 or 5 quest lines. They were really bad, like dog shit again. But at the same time, that's barely scraping the surface, so I don't know really. I will not say anything about that. Anyway guys, this was the video. I will make a full review of Midnight at some point. I want to make an individual video about every part of the game first, and then combine them in some way or another and make a full review and decide what my opinion on it is overall. Do I like it? Do I recommend it? And so on. So let me know what you think in the comments. I would really like to hear that, and make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you liked it, and until next time, peace.